Now reconvene our open meeting.
Certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Accomack County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative record vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas section 2.1-3771B of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be resolved that Accomack County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed, and two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Any opposed? Next up, we have roll call.
Mrs. Carnell.
Present.
Mr. Taylor.
Present.
Dr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Neal.
Here.
Ms. Handy.
Here.
Mr. Whipper.
Here.
Ms. Turner.
Here.
Ms. Bowman. Here. Mr. White.
Present.
Ms. Taylor. Dr. Jack.
Here.
We'll now stand and pledge the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the December 17th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the meeting minutes from 12/17/2024.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay. Abstain. Dr. Johnson and Ms. Handy abstained. Is there a motion on the personnel list? Okay, we'll wait. What do you want to approve any of them?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve, readmission case number 01-14-2403.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next up, we're gonna hear from our folks at K-Tank. There's a student, a parent, and a teacher, and a principal report.
Good evening to everyone. Madam Chair, how are you, and members of the board? Thank you for being here at Tank. We have the student, Micah Taylor. Then we also have a parent, Mrs. Stahl, and then our STEM teacher, Ms. Leah Young.
My name is Micah Taylor and I am a 5th grader at Accomack Elementary School. I have been at Accomack since kindergarten. I have had a few great teachers, but my favorite has been my 3rd grade teacher, Miss Moreno. She was my favorite teacher because she was nice to everyone and she helped me to pass my first SOL test. Since 4th grade, I have been a member of the Junior Beta Club. What I love most about Beta is helping others. There are 4 pillars of the National Beta Club: leadership, character, service, and achievement. Miss Merritt is our beta sponsor, and she teaches us to apply these pillars to everyday life. We travel to different places that I haven't been before, and it takes a lot of work and money to get to these places. Each of us is responsible for paying our own way. Usually that means raising a lot of the funds ourselves. It would help if the county could help in any way that they could, even if it was just the transportation.
I actually have 3 kids here at Accomack, one in 5th grade, one in 3rd grade, and one that's in ECSE. 2 of my kids are actually autistic. My 3rd grader is doing wonderful here, and I can't say enough for how much they have worked with him on his accommodation with his 504 plan. I also have my daughter who is 3. She started here last year. And when she started here, she was completely nonverbal and was having to be kept in a stroller so she didn't run around everywhere. And now she's actually speaking in full sentences, and she carries her lunch tray through the line herself, and she can stand there and sit just like everyone else. So I just want to say how much I really appreciate everything that the teachers are doing for them and the support staff, especially in the SPED department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see everybody. I just want to tell you a few things. Mr. Green asked me to get up here and speak. First, though, I want to mention our custodian extraordinaire, Mr. Cleveland Reed. I've been here for 32 years, and I have never seen this school look as good as it does with him. The floors are shining. That man is here with a smile on his face, and he helps anybody, all of us, anytime with a smile. He's always glad to help. And I just wanted to mention that. And I mean, really, our cafeteria staff too. They're all smiling. We're back there doing backpacks, and everybody is so good to the kids. But I just wanted to mention him because, like I said, I've been here so long and I've never seen it look like he's out there when the leaves are falling, sweeping off the sidewalk. I mean, this place is just to the nines.
Good to know.
Yes.
Good to know. Thank you.
We all know that education took a big hit when the pandemic, and we've seen those results in our test scores. But here at Accomack, those results, here at Accomack, Mr. Green has been so supportive. I kind of feel like we have a team theme going here. He supports us, Ms. Sharp supports us, Ms. Tankard. They all give us their utmost support, and I feel like they're steering us towards a course towards success. When Mr. Green became our principal, he came to me and he told me that he wanted STEM to be incorporated in all aspects of our school. And why would that be? Well, because we want our students to be well-rounded, and being here in school all the time that I've been, the teachers really do have to teach so that the kids can pass the SOLs. But in my room, we can kind of branch out a bit, and we can give them fun things to do, and kind of trick them into learning at the same time. Not that they don't want to, but you know, it just makes it a little better. There are 4 principles of STEM. They're called the 4 C's. It's communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. In the STEM lab, I blend the 4 C's into the pacing guides. Now, I'm going to say, with pre-K through 1st grade, it can be very challenging I have an easier time coming up with plans with third through fourth, even though you have tons of plans. It's very hard to get those little ones and get them, you know, to get their attention. But, you know, it's so critical that, you know, in the elementary school setting, we need to lay the foundation by increasing their attention span, teaching them to focus and stay on task, and to build working memory. That's how we're going to get them to learn to critically think and be creative and branch out, step out, have confidence. Now this year so far in my sim lab, the one activity I feel like that is really good, especially with the younger ones, is a book called Pumpkin Jack. And it is about the life cycle of a seed, of a plant seed. And, you know, the little ones like it. I carve pumpkins, we do jack-o'-lanterns, and it's all about how it's first a seed, and then it's a pumpkin, and then it's a jack-o'-lantern, and then it rots, and then it becomes a seed again, and so we do the whole cycle. So we've got them out in the nature classroom to have to go back and check again in the spring. We kind of covered them up just like the book does. We also did a life cycle on monarch butterflies. We built catapults for candy pumpkins, and then we catapulted them, and we measured how far they traveled. We made straw rockets. That's good old Mr. Dedicatoria. He orders some really cool stuff. That's one of them. We launched them, and that was to help understand force and motion and learn about two kinds of energy, kinetic and potential. We also measured the distance that they travel, because that's a big thing. That's a big deficit with a lot of kids. They do not know how to measure. They don't know how to use a ruler. They don't know how to use a tape measure. So we try to do a lot of that. We also do multiplication drills with the 4th and 5th grade, because we see from the pandemic that is also a weakness. We've used the B-box for the little ones to count, to find letters, to find the A, B's, and C's. But I'm going to say that the all-time favorite is Legos. They all love the Legos. The ones that won't eat them, that is. I don't give them to the small ones. And they're using those 4 C's because they are doing all 4 of those things when they're building those projects. It's books. I tell them to find one. They have to agree on which one they're going to do. Then they cooperate. Everybody has to take turns, and it's a really good project. Now the second semester, which is coming up soon, we're going to do robotics. We're going to use Indy and Bolt, the 3D printer. We're going to do some electronics with the circuit boards and makey. And last but not least, and Mr. Dedicatoria, I want him to know this, the 5th grade will be flying drones before they move on to the middle school, because he wants to have them ready to be in competition. So he did bring drones here for us to try. So that's what we're planning on doing. And I just want to say personally that I want to thank everybody. Chris Reeder, really, because he's the one that, when this STEM opened up, he said, you should try this. And I was like, me? You know, I'm old. What do I mean? But I did it, and I'm going to tell you, I love it. I've always loved working here. I've been here 32 years, but I love that STEM lab. I love having the chance the opportunity that has been given to me to influence kids in a positive manner. And I can honestly say that I have never worked a day in my life in those 32 years. I love what I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would just like to say thank you for your years of service. I know when my kids were going here, you were always always smiles, and you're awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to Micah. I know that he's tired, but I thank him for hanging in there with me. I thank Mrs. Staub for giving her opinion about Kegton and the best STEM teacher in the county, Leah Young, but I'm biased. So, but I just want to thank everyone for being here. I won't be long. I know as a preacher, I know sometimes that we can be long-winded, but I will not be. But I just want to say that since taking over in July, until July 1st, this has been one of my greatest experiences that I've ever had. I was a 39-year teacher administrator in the Maryland public school system. So this is my 40th year in education. And Ms. Young, you know, I had to get used to coming here with, I was always a secondary school administrator. And I had to get used to little ones hugging me. And they made me nervous, but they hung onto my leg. But now I'm getting used to it, and they really know when to give you a hug and when to make you feel good. So I'm glad to be the principal of Kegatank, and I have two great mates in Chelsea Sharp and Ruth Taggart. So I thank the board for giving them to me. And if you look on the presentation, our staffing, we have from pre-K all the way down to grade 5 and additional staff, instructional assistants, and everybody that we need in order to be a successful school. We also know that we have been accredited with conditions that we know that our science and math, that we really have to hit those hard. And that's why that I did go to Lee Ellen Young to ask her to integrate STEM, which promotes science as well as math, so that our students can, as she said, have fun in learning, so we can trick them into learning. So that we know that we've got to work on. But also the interventions, and I won't be long, the interventions that we have done, the eval student plans are in place and will be updated following our mid-year assessments. We have teachers participating in OG training, morphology training, and letters. We have Title I inclusion services. We have now, we're in the midst of our growth assessments, so that we'll see how much growth that our students have been making, and I have talked to some of my teachers, and they are pretty happy with some of the growth that has taken place up until now. And also we have Lexia as well as Zern, which is the language arts program, and as well as a math program. We also have the Success Academy on Saturdays, and a Smart Ants and computer-based reading program, and integrated SOL-based lessons in our STEM lab. So we're really putting things together so that, and I believe come to the end of the year, this precious gem called Kegatank will be one of the best schools in Virginia. So that is my goal, for that we will do that. We also have a social worker on site, mental health counselors, behavior specialists, as well as teacher mentors. I'd like to thank Julie Evans for working with us with our teacher mentors, and that has been a plus. Highlights that we've done this year, we've had some field trips, been to Brownsville. We've also had a Lexia superstar, so that they have mastered it to the last level. So at least that's a good thing. We've also had a fall social, and this place was packed out. I mean, all kind of, you know, I felt out of place because I didn't have a costume on. So I came as the principal of Kegatank. But we had a wonderful time. We've done things in our STEM lab that Ms. Ellen Young has stated. You saw that we had the fire truck and Santa come, and everybody was excited. Even I get happy to see Santa. So, and then we had the WHRO literacy band to come to see us, and which is something that we were very proud of. And then the last thing that I will say, it takes a village to raise a child, and I believe that I have the best staff in the state of Virginia. So thank you.
school year. Next up are staff budget presentations.
How's everyone tonight? Good. Good. All right. My budget is real simple. There's two things I'm asking for. One is the Vector Solutions. That is basically the trainings that some of our teachers need to do trainings every year to stay abreast of things. And as we're onboarding employees, they have to do certain trainings. Right now, they're on our website, but this company, Vector Solutions, they'll manage this whole thing for us online. We just need to give our employees a username and password, and they can go on and do the trainings themselves. It's just going to make life easier for us in HR and the teachers to know that they've done the trainings they need to do. They do everything except CPR, obviously. You want to do CPR hands-on. So we would keep doing that with our local providers. But everything else, 95% of the trainings could get done online through Vector Solutions. So they do everything that Virginia requires. Okay, the second thing, we talked about this in our strategic plan meetings a few months ago. Just asking for continuing with signing bonuses and retention bonuses for our special education teachers. We've had a real hard time hiring, and then we also want to retain and keep those people. So if it takes us having to, provide that incentive for them to want to join our team, and then for us to try to keep them, I think that would be a good way to do that. That's not just my opinion. That was coming from the, like I said, the strategic plan meetings that we had a couple months ago. All right, so they're the only two items I have. But I do want to talk to you tonight a little bit about Dr. Jack and I and Ms. Only have been talking about. We've had continued conversations about the classified staff and I think back in October and November. I know this is supposed to be about next year's budget, but I just wanted to show you a quick presentation about some adjustments to the classified staff. It's coming up right now. Okay. So we laid out 3 options for you to consider, and we'd like for you to consider those, and maybe next week, think about it. Maybe next week when you reconvene, somebody could call a vote, and we could try to settle it. The first option is the option that we discussed back in October. It would basically raise the floor, raise the lowest salary for a classified staff member to $15 an hour, and that's going to mostly affect some of our lowest paid employees. But this option would have a ripple effect throughout the whole way that we compensate our classified staff. So most of the classified personnel would end up getting a second increase on top of the one that they got back in September. So only 13 out of 308 employees would not receive a raise, because when we talked about this back in October, some people were over the limit that was the results of the compensation study, so they wouldn't get a raise. In this option 1, 13 classified employees would not receive a raise. And that would cost approximately, what was that? Could you go back to, approximately $600,000 for that particular option. And I'll let, Beth, do you have anything to add to that? Is there 8%?
Going from 5 to 600 included the SSL.
Yeah, she factored in the SSMs that we hired since October. I know that the last time we talked about this, we said it would cost about $500,000. Now that we have about 20 more employees, this would cost approximately $600,000. Okay, option 2. Okay, option 2 is basically saying we're gonna get rid of C1, that classification. There's only two levels of employees there, types of employees there. They are our cafeteria staff and our janitors, okay? So basically what we would do there is we would just eliminate C1 and put those jobs into C2. And therefore you're still helping out 70 of the lower paid classified employees. And this is a cheaper option. This would cost around $81,000 in recurring costs. And the minimum salary, the C2 minimum salary right now is $14.18 per hour. Okay? All right, option three. Option three is a little more complicated, but option three basically says we're gonna do the same thing as option two. We're gonna take C1, eliminate it, put those people in C2. They have the $14.18 an hour, minimum starting salary. And then we would give the classified employees a $2,000 retention bonus. So that's going to do a couple things for HR. One, you're compensating your folks. Two, it helps the HR department to know that we're retaining folks. If you take the $2,000 for retention bonus, you're agreeing to work in Accomack County Public Schools all next year. So it kind of helps with turnover when we do things like that. So the cost there for the salary is still $81,000. That's the recurring cost. I mean, the cost that's going to be in your budget every year. And it's $665,000 one-time cost for the retention bonus, for a total cost of $746,000. This would have an impact on all 308 classified employees that we have. 70 of the employees would get a raise in salary, and all of them would get the one-time bonus. In the past, you see the statement at the bottom. I know in the past the school board has applied retention bonuses normally to all employees, and applying a retention bonus to all employees would cost approximately $1.8 million if they all accepted the retention bonus. You don't have to take it. Most do. I think we had about.
That's the retention and the sign-on bonus, and that number, 1.8.
Oh, I'm being corrected, I'm sorry. That's $1.8 million is what we spent this fiscal year on both retention and sign-on bonuses. So that's what we spent, the $1,000 sign-on bonus and the retention bonuses of $2,000 each. So I apologize, it'd probably be a little less than the 1.8. So again, what's the next step? Please review these options. They're there for you to consider, and maybe next meeting someone would be ready to vote on it. I'm not sure. Dr. Jeck, did you have anything to add?
Just want to add one thing to keep in mind as you're considering this. I just met with the county administrator a day or so ago. There is going to be, or there is another $4 million in carryover. So I'll be talking to you in a minute about the state of the carryover, but it went from 24 million to 28 million. Now, the majority of that's going to go into these building projects, the 2 gyms, and then the primary school project. So the vast majority of that money is going to be used to pay for those projects. But there is money available if you chose option 3. In other words, there is money there to do that if you chose to do that. But just you would need to take that into account.
Going back to the presentation. So with option 2 and 3, we still can't go up to $15.
What happens is when.
I know about the ripple effect.
Yeah, option 2 and option 3. If I sent you all some other materials, I gave to Greta to send to you. Basically, the C2 minimum salary is $14.18. So then you're really not getting into the 15s until you get into C3 and C4. So if you're pushing all them up, it causes compression within the system that we just paid to put into place. So then you're getting people who are in C1 with the same salary as potentially someone who is supervising them. It just causes issues in the whole classified pay scale that we just don't feel like it would be wise. That's, you know, the options are there for you really to consider. Talking to Dr. Jack, if you chose C2 or C3, and then for next fiscal year, if you're able to give the classified staff, I believe we said a 6% COLA, Dr. Jack, it would put everybody over $15 an hour. But that again would need to be applied to all the classified staff. So if you chose option 2 or option 3, and then next year you're able to give a 6% COLA, that will push everybody in the division over $15. One other thing I wanted to mention, in the materials that I sent to you through Greta, there is also a proposed a list of the substitutes, what we currently pay per hour and what we're proposing to pay them per hour, and it's all minimum $15 an hour. And we made adjustments to the daily rates that we pay to make sure they're at least $15 an hour as well. Currently, they're not there. Okay, so you can look at that too and consider that as well. And next meeting we can have more of a price tag for that as to in terms of what that will cost us every year.
In option 2, you say this would impact 70 employees, cafeteria and custodians. Is that all the custodians and all the cafeteria people?
Yeah,
all of them?
not the head custodians and not the cafeteria managers. The cafeteria workers and the janitors, or custodians, excuse me. They would all see an increase, all 70. Yep.
Anyone else?
Yes, sir. So how did you come up with these 3 options?
And not just me personally, it was myself, collaborating with Dr. Jack and Ms. Only, just putting our heads together to come up with some options for you.
So you talk about C2, or my paper says $15.75 minimum. I'm a little confused.
Let me look.
It's right on the slide. So the C2 is a certain amount.
Oh, no, this is for option 1.
That's for option 1,
Yeah,
okay.
that's for option 1. Sorry, thanks for asking that.
Okay.
Yeah, the paper that.
Mr. Whipper's referring to, that is what would go into effect if you chose option 1.
So I have another question. So the formula to come up with this pay raise, how does people making $80,000, $90,000 even come up on a list from people not making $15 an hour?
That just goes into the ripple effect into, I'm assuming you're meaning for option 1? Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the whole thing to bring 15 was to bring lower income people at least 15. So I don't think it's fair that we're gonna try to give somebody $90,000, $85,000 whatever when people are already making $20,000.
And that's why we wanted to give options to you. We don't want to make the decision for you. So we gave you 3 different options. We can go back to the drawing board next week and try to come up with a 4th option if that's what the board chooses.
I don't like any option.
Okay, fair enough.
And I'd be more willing to work on option 4.
Okay.
Because like I said, none of these are gonna work. Just my opinion.
Fair enough.
May I ask a follow-up? I ask because I don't recall. These 3 options, how closely, broadly do they mirror the options that were presented last fall, October, November?
Only option 1 is the same option that we presented to the board, I believe it was October 15th.
you know, we took into consideration that, you know, we wanted to give, under Dr. Jack's leadership, we want to give you some other options. But like I said, it becomes troublesome if we raise the floor, then it goes into salary compression, and then the people you can't have the people that were classified at C1 make it more money than the people classified at C3 or C4. Their level of responsibility and qualification for the job is more so than the folks that are at C1 and C2. So you can't just take C1 and bump them up without bumping the people ahead of them up. So that's where the ripple effect comes into effect. And so it's hard for us to, you know, have an option where you raise the bottom to $15 without raising the other people in the other steps. So, I mean, but we can go back to the drawing board. I got some. So, on the personnel list, almost every meeting, there's cafeteria workers, SSNs, people that don't make a whole lot of money, they're the ones that are leaving. These people making 80, 90 grand, they ain't leaving. So I have a big problem with giving them anything when they only make that much money. Like I said, the whole thing around this was to get from 13 to at least $15 per hour. And I don't understand how a ripple effect affects somebody that makes that much money versus somebody that makes money way down here. That person didn't start at $15 an hour. I don't care if they've been here 20, 30 years. They just started as an accountant at $15 an hour, now they make 90. You know what I mean?
Can I say something?
Sure.
What we were hoping to do with giving three options is generate a conversation, because there is no simple answer to this. If we took custodians and cafeteria workers alone in that group, C1, and paid them $15 an hour, which I think is great, by the way, they're going to be making more than people in C2 and C3 with their starting salaries. So we're not sure what the board is comfortable with in terms of threading that needle, because we could do that, but then what do we do with the folks at C2 and C3 who are making 14, I don't have the number bad, 1418 and 1488 starting from C2 and C3. What do we do with them? If we raise their salaries, then that's where the ripple effect comes in. So that's why we gave option 2, which isn't ideal, but it was a simpler fix, which was just, let's just roll them up into C2, and they make $14, $18 an hour, which again is an ideal. Option 3, of course, is the most expensive. It is a combination, as you know, of C2 and C3. It gets rid of C1 altogether, which we kind of figured wasn't real popular with the school board. We understood that, but we wanted to generate some conversation. So if we need to go back to the drawing board, come up with another suggestion, we're happy to do that, but we really wanted to get input from you all, because there's not a simple solution to this issue. It is a rather difficult, complicated issue, and frankly, honestly, it probably should have been addressed when you did the comp study. That's probably when this should have been taken care of. We wouldn't have this issue of having to go back and look at the same people who were benefited from the comp study and benefit them again, to your point. Right. So that's, all due respect, that's when it should have been addressed.
Just to piggyback too, you know, if you give the one-time bonus, I think there's a couple of things that I think are advantageous about it. One, it's one-time money; it's not recurring in the budget. And if you're making $24,000 a year, just being hypothetical, and you get a $2,000 bonus, that's a really nice bonus for anyone who's in that salary range, I believe. So we're compensating them. If you factor in the $2,000 bonus, I think I'd have to do the math, but I'm pretty sure we're pretty close to $15 an hour for their annual salary.
So,
Go ahead, Council, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You go, I didn't see you, sorry.
So I don't mean to be thick-headed about it. If I don't hear anything so far as opposition to $15 an hour, however, am I understanding that we might not be able to have our cake and eat it too, that we can give the $15. I think you all have said to us like 3 times, for emphasis, that there is a ripple effect, have the cake and eat it too. Is that accurate? It's not that you don't want to do it, but we need to know what we're asking.
That's a good question, and I'm right there with you in terms of your observation about those folks at the bottom. I'm just trying to figure out, we're trying to figure out how do we address it? How do we fix that problem? And, I wish there was a simple, let's just do this thing and it'll take care of it. We're not able to find that thing. I mean, the closest thing, I think I shared this with Janet, in just a kind of one-on-one conversation about rolling them up into C2 is simplest, and then maybe into next budget year, you give them a 6% COLA. But again, that would impact everyone. Okay, unless you sort of arbitrarily say, well, no, we're just gonna do a 6% COLA for those 70 some odd people, cafeteria and custodians. You can do that too, but again, then you'll have the same issue with compression.
I think the ripple effect should have a cap, it should stop, the ripple needs to stop, it doesn't need to go over a certain amount dollar-wise. So these people at the bottom, you know, they're making no money. Find out these people already got a raise, they're making triple, quadruple what they make, and now they're getting more money, it's another slap in the face, unappreciated, and they're getting paid less. And you're gonna have the personnel list be a whole bunch of people that are out of here, and we're gonna be stuck with no cafeteria workers, no custodians, none of those people. I just think the ripple should stop at a certain point. Like I said, it's just my opinion, I don't know if you can stop the ripple once it starts, but like I said, when these people find out that these people are getting these big raises or whatever, and they're still way down here, they're not where they're at. And you can't survive barely, you can't really survive on $15 an hour. It's a huge step in the right direction for where we were. So
I think everybody, I can speak for, I know that Dr. Jack just reemphasized that we don't disagree with you. It's just coming up with a solution everybody can get on board with.
So this ripple effect, the peak is going to be at the top of the classified. There's nowhere in between C2, C3 going on up, like at C6, C7. Is that where kind of the peak that we have to keep adding up a little bit to get to that $15? Where is that ripple effect?
Presently, the minimum starting salary in C1 is $13.50, C2 $14.18, C3 $14.88, C4 $15.63. So then, the only, I don't even know if it would hinder us in terms of compression, but the only way to make everybody with the current setup that we have, the first C4 is the first classification that has over a $15 an hour starting salary. So everybody in C1, C2, and C3 actually are less than $15 an hour if you're first starting out with Accomack County with no experience.
So some option 4 where you can look at the C5, C6 area, C5, C6 area that maybe
C5 1641 and C6 is 1723.
you understand what I'm saying? That
These people's, they have more responsibilities, certifications, things that they've done to get into C5 or into C6. It's just it's something that we can look at, and we can come back to you next week with option 4, and maybe through some collaboration make it work, and we can definitely run the numbers on it.
Yeah, but we don't want anyone to leave here tonight thinking that we came in asking for people who are at the top to, that's not what we're saying. We're saying we want them to get input, and if you have suggestions, clearly we're listening. Because ultimately decision is going to be yours anyway. So we can sharpen our pencils, and the idea of creating caps is, that's doable. So that we can come back next week. That's TJ, because I said, let's get this in front of the board tonight, so we get some feedback, so we can come back on the 21st, and maybe either have another plan or get voted on. So that was sort of the strategy here, was get it to you tonight so you can take a look at it.
So listening to the concerns in the audience, I'm not sure, but one of the things that popped into my head is that we basically have a differential between C1, C2, C3. Maybe we can get to the lower levels and then compress the top ones a little bit more so it's not as much of a percent. Okay, so I'm just pulling numbers out of the air. So let's say the difference between C1, C2, C3, C4, let's say it's 2%. And then when we get up at the higher levels where the concern appears to be, perhaps we could make that not 2%, but 1.25% or 1%, so that it wouldn't be as big of a ripple effect all to the top. And if we get payroll out this week, that's something I'd be happy to look at next week. But, perhaps differentiating that it's not a consistent differential the entire 18, 19, but we compress it a little more at the top so that they don't feel as much of an increase. Maybe that's an alternative that you'd like for.
Sure.
Work on it. We'll have some for you next week. Okay.
And thank you for bringing this, I think this is what it's all about,
Yeah.
tonight to discuss.
Yes.
And get this forward. Thank you.
Great, good discussion. Who is going to address the calendar?
We still budget discussions.
Oh, okay. How many budget people are here?
There's 5.
Okay,
We'll be quick. It was supposed to be 5 minutes. But TJ has something.
Sorry I took so long.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight just to give you a brief overview of the elementary budget request. You'll see it consists of 3 items. If you don't see it, I'll give you just a brief overview. Basically, those 3 things are textbooks. As you know, our standards in ELA, math, and history have been updated. We've reached the end of our current contracts with our textbooks. So that's kind of easy. We need to look at our curriculum. Currently, elementary and secondary are going through textbook review adoption for ELA. We're waiting on the VDOE to release their final approved list, which will come out after the board's meeting in April. The other item the second item on my budget request is part-time assistant principals. I want a huge thank you to Dr. Tyler, Ms. Ruth Tankard, Mr. Lawrence, Dr. Haynes. I think I got everybody. They've been instrumental in supporting our current admin staff for various reasons. And I would like to continue to be able to utilize those resources. Our current admin pool is very small, just like the teachers. There's not a large group of them right now, but we're doing some brainstorming of working on trying to get some cohorts to build that pool. But the third part of my budget that I really want to emphasize this evening is kindergarten instructional assistants. What I've done is I've reached out to every school. I've just reached out to one teacher and asked them, talk to your team and share with me how crucial these staff members are to your classroom. As you know, our early childhood special education classrooms and our preschool classrooms are mandated to have an IA, and I think that says a lot. There's a reason. We're talking about, when I go through these few things, I want you to think about 5-year-olds, because a lot of teachers would be like, I would love to have an IA too, but we're talking about 5-year-olds who, for many of them, this is the first time they've been in a school setting. Many of them come to us and have not been in preschools either with us or outside. So some of the justification, as you know, with the DLA, we have, it's called EIRI interventions. Students that have reading plans have to have an additional 2.5 hours of intervention each week. These assistants are instrumental in this and making sure to support our teachers and to provide the required extra intervention on top of our Tier 1 instruction. They help with transitions. Again, these students a lot of them are coming to us and are not used to a structured environment where they have to follow rules, they have routines, they've been at home and rightfully so have a lot more freedom. It's a different situation. So the IAs help with
them going to the bathroom, them walking to the bus, them walking to the cafeteria. It provides a lot of consistency. Previous to this year, not all of our kindergarten, there was a lot of sharing of IAs. They didn't have a full time, and many of the teachers said it actually had a negative effect because it wasn't consistent, and the children, it was not promoting routines. We have a lot of testing at elementary, but initially when our children are coming into us, we have DKRP testing, VALS testing. Our kindergarten teachers are constantly doing checklists to keep up with the standards-based report card. And again, the IAs help with this. A big one, potty training. Our students are not required to be potty training, and we have a teacher trying to teach a lesson. That IA, again, might sound like something small, but is instrumental in keeping the children on a routine and helping them learn 12 needs. Coverage due to lack of subs. Just daily organizational, helping our little ones learn how to interact, what it looks like to be in the classroom setting. Lunch duty, a major one. We have little ones, the entire lunch, they can't open their milk, can't open their cartons, and those IAs are the individuals that are in there helping our students so that they get the proper nutrition. I said arrival and dismissal, monitoring the students. A lot of times our kindergarten classes go two different directions, so we need someone to walk the students to point A and then to point B. SEL is a big one. Again, some of our students come to us and have a lot of social emotional needs or just areas of growth and need assistance with that. Support using technology, at 5 years old, a lot of our little ones are already on technology, but not all. And the IAs are able to help get the children on the computer programs, and the teacher can keep teaching her small group over here. Students come to us and have a variety of abilities, disabilities, and when they're coming to us in kindergarten, that's the first time we've seen many of them. So there's a lot of data that needs to be taken in order to meet the students' needs. So I feel it's very, very important that our kindergarten teachers have an IA in each one of their classrooms. We've done it this year, and I think the teachers have been very appreciative. We've seen great success with the students, and I look forward to in the spring to bring data to you to show you where our children were at the beginning of the year and where they are in the spring. So that'll be just another key point to support the growth and the importance of IAs. So, thank you.
Any questions from Ms. Farrell?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so like Ms. Farrell said, for history and for English, we are also up for the same adoption for secondary. We had the math approved for this past year's budget, so we know we'll be ordering those in the spring. But for all three subjects, it seemed like it hit all at the same time, where subscription or contract with the textbooks have come to expiration. So we're asking for that at all the levels. Some other areas that I am requesting, and the principals have submitted their own requests, so this is different from what they have requested. Some of them, we do have similar things. Every year that I've been in this position, I have asked for additional 10-month school counselors. In March of 2023, the Virginia legislation actually said we're supposed to have one counselor for every 325 students. We are not meeting that at all in the mainland schools for the middle and elementary. In fact, when we did the rezoning, Accomack is now our third largest school in Accomack County, larger than either one of our middle schools, and we have one counselor. That is a lot, and also with the legislation came with the 80-20. Counselors are supposed to spend 80% of the time counseling. They're not meeting it because they're already exceeding everything they've got, every day they come in. So I am asking for 3 10-month counselors so that we can split them between the schools. Also, 3 10-month guidance secretaries that we can split amongst those same schools so we can try to have a balance. Because also with the attendance, as we've said with All in Virginia, and we are looking at seeing if we could use some of that in addition to county money, attendance alone is a lot to keep track of. And at one time, we had guidance secretaries, and those were the ones who used to do your tardy pass when you walked in, called your mom when you weren't in school. But that went away a long time ago, and I feel like we are very, very short-staffed in our counseling department. Also, like Ms. Farrell said, to have 2 additional retired teachers. Last year, the budget approved for 2, So we'd like to have the other two, even though this year we've been able to use 4 here and there. We've had to piecemeal it together, but as you've seen, we have 2 schools that are accredited with conditions. We could use the extra support from the retired teachers. Also, just like retired administrators, I'm sorry. Just like teachers, we get a sub. It's nice to have a retired admin if an admin's out to be able to help support that building. Or if there's a big function going on that they can go in to help. When we started the STEM labs with the Cal Ripken Foundation, they went out and got sponsors. One of our largest contributors that actually funded both Shingatig schools, Wetumpka Elementary School and Kegatank Elementary School, has asked, where is our STEM teacher for Shingatig High School? We have yet to hire a teacher, but I feel like we've also had a slow rollout. We started as a pilot program with Arcadia Middle School last year with robotics. This year, or the year before last, then we had it at the Andrew Middle School. But at Shingatig, I would like to have a STEM teacher that not only does the middle, but also can do the high school. One of the biggest concerns is Shingatig High School and middle school do not have nowhere near the elective classes that our mainland schools have. And yes, they're a smaller school, but they should still have the same equal opportunity. So I do have a STEM teacher in there. And then, lastly, or 2 last things, I'm sorry. Our school counselor pay scale. Our school counselors are paid on a 10-month teacher pay scale. Yet, to be a school counselor, you're required, just like an administrator, to have a master's degree. Their degree has to be in school counseling, which requires 60 credit hours. That is not the normal master's. That's like getting 2 master's degrees. I feel like they should be on a different pay scale, which is much higher, just like our mental health counselors are actually on a higher pay scale than our school counselors. So I would like to see that some funding is put towards our school counselors for, what their duties and responsibilities are on a daily basis. And then lastly, for over 20 years that I am aware of, the person that has always been in charge of assessment and accountability has always been a director. The most recent hire was named as a coordinator. So I would like to put the budget in there to have that person be a director again. Because like I say, that position has always been a director position. When you hear about the DDOT meetings, it's for the division director of testing and assessment, not a coordinator. And I think what the position is doing now is far above what that person has ever done before. And I will say that is Ms. Ferguson, who Punkatig would not have been able to enroll 1 student, had a master's schedule, done anything if she had not actually stepped out the role to play school counselor, because we didn't start the school year off with a counselor at that school. While at the same time, at 9:30 at night, she called me to let me know she was at Accomack Elementary School trying to do registration. So she does above and beyond what the normal assessment coordinator position is, and she's really taken the role on to help oversee our counselors as well. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. You speak?
Yeah.
Okay, so, Ms. Taylor talked about a lot of what I talk about, and you guys know my heart is in school counseling. And on the teacher pay scale, if we had a high school teacher who taught all 4 blocks, they would be getting an extra block of pay. A lot of my counselors do not get lunch, or they're eating as they're walking down the hall, and they don't get a planning period, yet they are not compensated for working all day. They are making major decisions every single day. They fill in for admin, they're doing crisis teams, they're doing suicide risk assessments. So I am really asking for the pay scale difference for the counselors. I did do some research with Region 2 and with our cohort group, and all of their counselors are on a different pay scale. So I will be glad to provide that if you guys would like that. The other thing was the 80-20 rule. When I got this job and came up and spoke to you, I told you I would always be honest with you. And I can tell you right now, it is state mandated that 80% of their time be counseling and 20% do paperwork. And it's not happening. It's not happening. And it's not fair to the kids. It's not fair to the parents. If you call one of them and want a phone call back, you should get that phone call back. It shouldn't be that they're filing or they're doing testing. So to bring in another counselor or and a guidance secretary that could do all of that would be amazing. And who's gonna benefit is our kids, and that's what we're here for, are the students. The other thing that I have in my budget is a large shredder. As you can imagine, there's a lot of data and information that comes through our office, and so I did put a shredder on there. One thing that was not in my budget, but I feel like is very important, and one of these counselors that we're asking for really could kind of do a dual role in collaboration with Dr. Jack. One of the issues that we've seen are with the Virtual Virginia kids, the students who are in alt ed, our homeschool kids, and the students who are home-based. We really need one person who is in charge of this group, that works with our Virtual Virginia parents, that works with our Virtual Virginia kids, that goes to the trailer at Reconnect and works with those kids and the alt ed, that does lessons with them, that still is the counselor for all of our kids. We've got a lot of kids out on home-based. We've got homeschool kids that, you know, we would like to reach out to them and see what's going on. Some of the kids are trying to come in for AP testing as well, so we still do offer services to them. The other group is our GED kids, kids that are dropping out, that would, this person would work with them to help arrange transportation so that they can get to that community college to take that GED. So I guess it's in that position, but there's definitely a need for this. I've talked to Virtual Virginia parents, I've talked to Reconnect kids. This is definitely something that we need, and if one person was in charge of it, then everything would go through that one person. So I thank you for all your help and support. If you have any questions, and I'm definitely here for the students, and I support my counselors.
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson.
Do you have any questions? I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, Ella.
Hi, good evening. This is from my side, Student Services. At this time, I would like to request 7 more SSOs to continue ensuring safety for all of the students and the staff. I would like them at Arcadia Middle, Nandua Middle, Kegatank, Punkatig, Accomack, Accomack Elementary, and Kegatank Elementary. I said that twice, I'm sorry. The cost of 7 with no experience would be roughly about $207,000 with the starter salary about $29,852. However, if I could squeeze out 8 at a cost of $238,000, that person would be at the mobile units, which are all ed and Reconnect, because we know that they're just there right now until the new building is constructed and they leave. And then that person can transition over to us at the building if we have a security officer there. Currently, we have 2 per building, which is awesome, until someone calls out. And then I have to try and find a sub for one of the one who has to call out from a different school. And usually I use from Chincoteague Elementary or Chincoteague High School, because they currently both have 2 SROs. Most of the schools, I selected the schools that I selected because they do not have an SRO on site. But the secondary schools like the Nanduas and Arcadia do share an SRO, so if something urgent happened, they're in close enough proximity. So the program, like I said, the SSOs are taken off. I get calls, I've had people, several calls of interest if that could happen. Preferably if it could happen this school year. I don't know what the budget looks like. We will wait until January to see if we could try to hire more to end out this school year, even if it was a part-time status. But for me and my department at this time, it's going to be SSOs. That's it.
Any questions for Ms. Jordan? Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Anyone else here for budget requests? No. Would we like to move on to the calendars?
Hello again. So we have the results that Ms. Smith is going to pull up for us so that I can share with you from our calendar survey. And of course, we had two different stakeholder groups that we surveyed. We surveyed our parents and our community stakeholders, and then our school staff. So the first one, it's hard to see. My eyes are not very good. Let's see. Let's see, Greta, over there, is that the school staff or community? Staff, okay. So the first one with our staff, we have two slides. Basically, it was interesting to see both stakeholder groups. The results were almost identical. In this one for our school staff, option C was the top pick. Option C was the top pick that came in just roughly under 50% of those that voted for calendar C. And the second page that we're looking at right now breaks down who voted and what percentage. And you can see our teachers and counselors were the largest group, followed by our other group in instructional assistants, SSMs, office staff, nurses, and then bus drivers and aides. Again, for this group, calendar C was the top choice, followed by option D at around 20, just a little under shy of 27%. And then when we look at our community stakeholders, again, the results basically mimicked each other. For that group, just shy of 50% chose option C. And again, second place to that, second option was option D, which came in just shy of 31%. Both of these options are the ones that started after Labor Day. And you can see a few stakeholders chose before Labor Day start time. Questions about this data?
So our total of, I guess, the community was 626 responses?
Yes, that's correct. 626 from our community stakeholders, and for our school staff, 425 responses. And we had it posted for 3 days on the school websites, and we emailed it to all the school staff members. Thank you, guys.
Other questions?
So I believe it does come up next on the agenda, if we're asking if you do approve this, we'd like to go ahead and get our calendar in place, if you guys are in agreement with this and approve our stakeholders' input.
I guess I do have one question. So why aren't we adding at least some inclement weather days? I know we had the virtual, but why can't we consider putting some back into our calendar just to, we have snow, but the kids go out and play.
Right.
Why can't we start looking into doing that?
We could, basically what that would mean would be adding days at the end of our calendar, or also taking away, holidays. If we're in semester one, specifically if we're thinking about high school, and they have several days, then we're gonna have to, in semester one, take some holidays or add some time in. What we did in 2021, the General Assembly, they granted superintendents permission to use those 10 virtual days. It was House Bill 1790 and Senate Bill 1132. And right around COVID, when that came out, we just decided to use the virtual days so that we're not tacking on days at the end of the year or having to cut out some people's spring break or taking a holiday away. So that was when that decision was made.
I just wonder if we should maybe do a poll sometime for next year to see what parents or community or staff rather lose some days around the holidays or whatever to, have those inclement weather days, just out of curiosity.
And it really wouldn't affect, if we had it in there, it may be a visual for some people just to see, hey, we have built-in days, but the end result is still, you're gonna go a little longer or you're gonna take holidays.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
If I understood correctly, we have 10 virtual days we use
Yes.
before we have, okay.
Yes. So we have those 10 days and we don't have to mess with anything with our calendar. And I know there's been some discussion about the virtual days in comparison to other counties. Our calendar this year, we came back Thursday and Friday, where some of our neighboring counties and some of our counties, I think Hampton, they did not come back, so they didn't have the materials, they didn't have their work, their computers and so forth. So that's why some divisions here recently with this storm could not do a virtual day because they weren't prepared. They were still on Christmas vacation, holiday vacation.
I know, Mr. Chair, you and I talked about this, and we talked about banking time, and then my previous school division, that's what we did, we banked time. But we went to school a lot longer during the school day, so, I checked with Katie, and we actually don't bank time here because of the our instructional time is over what's required, but then the transition time takes that away. So it ends up being a wash, so we really don't bank time. That doesn't mean you can't add minutes to the school day and bank time if you wanted to go that model. That's never a popular choice, and based on my experience. And a lot of folks are doing the virtual, taking the virtual option. And I'm speaking statewide, not for Accomack here, it has been a learning, event for lots of school divisions. Because, especially during COVID, it happened so fast, and here's what you're doing, and, let's have virtual instruction for folks. And that was put in the cart way in front of the horse. And I don't know that statewide folks have really completely figured out the absolute best way to do it. I think in many ways we're still kind of groping to figure out what is the best formula for these, and I'm just speaking completely candidly with you. What is the absolute best way to provide this virtual instruction in rural areas, for example, for folks who have slow dial-up or who don't have internet at all? That's a tough one, and that's not just here. That's in most school divisions. In Fauquier County, roughly 20%, they don't have dial-up or they don't have internet at all. That's a lot of kids. I don't know what the percentage is here, but I'm gonna guess it's in that area roughly. So it is a work in progress, but just to repeat, most school divisions, I shouldn't say most, lots of school divisions took the virtual option, but I think they're still working on perfecting it. It takes time.
We actually have, I've got a meeting coming up this week with my admin team, and I was monitoring during the snow days as a parent and as an administrator, what was being sent out to the kids, what were their options, what were their choices. So we're actually meeting this week to look at that, look at the data, and to see where some areas we can grow, what are some things we can do differently, if needed. We're just gonna assess this recent storm and the virtual learning. Yes, ma'am.
As far as the state code and the option for the 10 virtual days, is that permanently enshrined in the code, or is there some point where that option expires?
Right now, we actually pulled the SOQs just to review it, and right now it's still the same verbiage as when it came out in 2021, but we will need to continue to look at it every year to see if there's any changes, and that'll come out from the DOE and the superintendent's message and things like that, where we be notified.
Any more questions for Ms. Farrell? Thank you.
Thank you. Are we interested in voting on it tonight, or? Okay. Thank you.
Item 6.03. Is the idea of a HR consultant, and the purpose of this would be someone that we would hire temporarily to come up with salary scales and not have to put that on Mr. Johnson. And the intention is that it would be very transparent, so there would be a salary scale online, like many of our other cohort school divisions have. The bus drivers would have a salary scale, the cafeteria people would have a salary scale, the instructional assistants would have a salary scale, the teachers would have a salary scale. There would be a salary scale for each category of worker. And they would be able to find them based on their years of service, they'd be able to find themselves on the scale. So, yes, ma'am.
Help me understand, what I'm hearing sounds a lot like another comp study, which we just did. Am I hearing it wrong?
No, we did, out of the compensation study, I believe we got scales, or we got salary ranges. This would actually be a salary scale.
Can I, do you mind?
Yes, sure.
We do have scales, and we've been working on getting them pushed out. We knew that you were reconsidering some things like the $15 an hour, so from my perspective, we were gonna do this back in, right after it was approved in October, but then everybody said, wait a minute, we want $15 minimum. So I kind of put it, and I've been short-staffed, as you all know.
Yes, right.
So I hit the pause button until you all, figured out exactly what you want. But we do have lanes and scales, we have them. I'm just waiting to put them online so that I don't have to put them online and take them back offline and put them back online. So we do have all of that you're referring to in terms of if I am a C4 and I know I have 10 years experience, I can go and find C4 on the internet and go to 10 years and boom, that should be my salary. We have all that. Again, just full transparency, I've been waiting for clarity, a final, and then again, I've been short-staffed, which all of you know. So we have that, and once we have hey, this is what we're doing, I was gonna put that all out on the internet on our website for everyone to see. That would be all classified staff, the bus drivers, and the administrators.
This will also help you with your position as well, this consultant, correct?
Just give me some direction on how you would like me to utilize that consultant.
No, I'm saying consultant would be help massive to you.
Well, I mean, any help would be, if you're giving me someone and saying, hey, you have carte blanche to use this person, then sure, I mean, I'm not gonna turn away any help. But it just would depend on what it is, what kind of direction you're giving me to use this person. I wouldn't want you to waste money on something that we already have, and I just come in and say, oh yeah, here it is, here's your product. We've already got it, really. I just need to make some tweaks. And by the way, as you were sitting there, I was over here working on what you were kind of throwing out there. So I don't know, maybe Dr. Jekyll has some comments about that in his comments related, but just wanted to throw that out there. I don't want anyone to spend any money on something that we already have, and maybe need some adjustment. And then I was hoping to do it back in October, put it all online, full transparency. But again, lost a person in my department. Then I knew we were wanting to do some changes. So again, didn't want to plow that field twice, so to speak. Okay.
Can we move on, Madam?
Yes.
Can we move on?
Yes.
It sounds
If
like,
anybody else-
in a perfect world, everybody would want extra help. I could use some, but, it sounds like what has been specifically suggested is covered.
Well, I look forward to the detailed salary. Scales.
It's 90% done. If we make some changes, I just have to make the changes, and then we will put it all out there.
Okay. So, next up is the approval of the school calendar. Oh, I'm sorry, Stephanie.
I just wanted to add that, we're in a transitional period right now, and, we don't know how long it's gonna take, it could be a few months, and we're looking for a permanent person to take the superintendent position, and then, so it may be useful to have a consultant during that time, and then when the new person
speak to the executive director for VAS, Dr. Braybrand, and ask him about, because they offer the service. VAS is the state superintendent's organization. They offer this service, but he was very specific about that you have to tell us exactly what it is you want. Like the scope has to be very clearly defined, and we'll give you whatever you like. But it's kind of like programming a computer. Like it's what you program into it is what you're going to get from it. So I'm not exactly sure where we go from here with this, but VAS is that they will do it. And I used them before, they're reasonable. And they'll do practically anything you want as far as work like this. But again, it really comes down to what we tell, what's the scope we're giving them, like what we want them to tell us. But they're very good.
So next up is the approval of the 2025 school calendar. Is there a motion on a version of the calendar?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the option C for the 2025-26 school calendar.
Is there a second? Okay, thank you. So all in favor of option C, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Greta, did you get that? Okay. Item 7.02, approval of a public information officer.
This is action. So it's all.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve for the public information officer, the PIO.
Second.
Here's a motion and a second to approve the, public information officer position. All in favor?
Aye.
I was gonna have a little discussion.
Oh, okay,
Just, I see the contract length is 260 days.
yes.
And so at the end of that, will we vote again if we want to continue this? How will we handle it from there? Is this like an ongoing forever position, or is this a year to year?
Yeah, that's just reflective of an administrator's number of days that they work. It's a 12-month position. So, yeah, I mean, ideally, once it's approved and in the budget, then yeah, it would be a recurring position that's in the budget and wouldn't need to be reapproved every year.
Okay, but that doesn't mean you can't move to eliminate the position in the next budget if you choose to do that. That's the board's prerogative.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstain.
Abstained. So, Mr. White and Ms. Handy abstained, Ms. Bowden voted no, and Ms. Johnson is absent. Dr. Johnson is absent.
For the motion for
Yes. Motion is approved. Superintendent's report.
So the conversation about salary scales, et cetera, is kind of a good segue into what I'm presenting tonight. And the first part of this presentation really is a precursor, a preview of what I'll be talking about next week in my proposed budget. But at the top of the list, in terms of what I see as a significant need for the school division, is to address some of the issues in the teacher pay scale. Our pay scale is compressed, and as I mentioned, I think in the previous meeting, compression occurs when you have a combination of you go some years without getting raises, and then you, like a lot of school divisions have done, you front load the beginning of the pay scale to make it more attractive for new teachers. But if you do that and you don't address on down the line, then you're compressing the scale. So somebody with a couple years experience isn't really making that much less than someone who's 5, 6, 7 years down the line. And that's where we end up losing a lot of people right in that sweet spot. So on this chart, if you look at that graph, the red line represents, I'm gonna say problem that, let me get my laptop, hang on a second. Another same problem Katie has of not being able to see as good as I used to be able to see. So the red is, here we go.
That's all.
That's our current. Green or blue at the bottom is, excuse me, the top is what the state average would look like, the red one. The bottom, the blue, is where we are. So you can see we're significantly below the state average in terms of teacher pay scale. If you look at the graph on the right, it kind of gives you the percentage of the difference in terms of where we are and what the state average is. And as you move further on down the scale, the discrepancy gets larger and larger and larger, which often is where you lose teachers anyway. So, and if you look at the bottom, I'm using the state average just as an example. That does not necessarily mean that I'm going to come next week, because we're still crunching numbers to figure out what we can afford. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what I'm going to be proposing next week, is that we're able to hit the state average. We may not be able to, at least not in this coming year. It may take 2 years to do that if the board is so inclined. Because it's expensive, it's not cheap. And I know I like to reference my previous school division, but I can tell you it took us 3 years and 5 years to do this. We were so compressed, it literally took 3 budgets to fix the compression in our pay scale. I don't know how long it's going to take. Beth and I have been working on this. Beth's really doing the work. But I'm just using the state average as an example. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're going to be able to do. All right, this is just different representations of the same issue. Look at that slide on the left. It kind of tells you where we are with our region, where we rank in our region out of 15 reporting school divisions. And then right next to it is where we rank in the state average. So I'm going to tell you what you already know as Captain Obvious, that we're not doing very well in our region, and we're not doing very well in our state in terms of where we are on the pay scale from 5 years, 10 years on down. I highlighted that little section there on the right, the EA 24-25 salary study for teachers cohort comparison. That is a market, that's a cohort group that I think Dr. Benson created a few superintendents ago. And I like it because it's pretty good. It's a pretty good group of folks who are similar to us in terms of their LCI, enrollment, etc. I highlighted Northampton because 2 reasons. One, they're our closest competitor. I suspect we have been competing with them for a long time. And it looks like Dr. Martin, the superintendent in Northampton, is an old age, not old, that was awful. She is a former HR person, and it looks like her goal has been to meet the state average. Because if you look at their numbers in terms of 0 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you compare that to the state averages, they're right next to each other. So I'll bet you a nickel that that's been their goal, is to meet the state average. And so that is a sort of a tickler to, wow, it would be good to exceed, or at least be very comparable to what Northampton is doing, because I know we have better benefits than Northampton. It would be fantastic if we were much more competitive with them in terms of our pay. So that's that. And the last slide related to pay scale just has to do with what the percent increase would be for current teachers if we were able to meet the state average, what the increase would be for these different teachers at these different years of experience. You can see it visually. And I would point out that the state average is going to change again next year. It's probably going to go up by around 3%, which is what it does every year. That's roughly the average increase at school divisions across the state. So this state average model is going to go up next year. So what that means for us is if we did some kind of market adjustment to help teachers, to make us more competitive, to make the scale more linear, we probably should do that and do some kind of across the board increase, because the state average is going to go up. That makes sense. So there's the market adjustment plus an across the board increase to meet what everyone else is doing across the state, which is about a 3% increase, which is what people typically do. In other words, we don't want to do markets. We wouldn't want to do an increase to be more competitive in our market and not do something else with our, within our steps is the state advocate law. It's a little convoluted, but yeah. So I'll be talking more about that next week. We have a national teacher shortage. We have a shortage in Virginia. We have a shortage in Accomack County. Most everyone is dealing with the shortage issue. It's not a new thing. It's been exacerbated by COVID. It was on steroids during COVID. The number of teachers we lost. We lost 300,000 teachers in a year's time during COVID. A lot of people just trying to get out and trying to get them back while schools, higher level institutions are eliminating undergraduate education programs. Those are daggers, and there's not enough teachers to replace the ones we're losing. We have a lot of unfilled positions in Accomack County, plenty. We'll be talking more about that next week in terms of, just to give you an example, if year to year to year, you're not able to fill positions, the same types of positions, year to year to year, at some point you have to make a decision. Well, do we want to take that lump, that bunch of teachers, not individual teachers, but that lump of teacher salaries, and just take a percentage of them and apply them towards your teacher scale, knowing that every year you're not going to fill some of those positions. It's just going to happen. And again, it's not just happening here, it's happening everywhere. So that's a decision point that Beth and I have talked a lot about this, and TJ, about if every year we're dealing with the same thing. There is a decision point where you have to decide, do we want to keep advertising these positions knowing you're not going to fill them? Do you want to just take some of that revenue stream, put it towards teacher pay scale to keep the people you have? So, enough said there. All right. More to come next week.
Dr. Jeff?
Yes.
May I?
Yes, ma'am.
Before we switch subjects. So, I find this very intriguing, period. With regard to data like this, just for consideration, particularly because you're offering to come back and address this topic, that sounds good. I'm curious, and I certainly defer to you, around these other cohorts. I wonder how their retention challenges compare. That might be interesting data for future discussion. And state interviews, right? Not trying to, influence any of this. There is some data that strongly suggests that money isn't everything, right? Before people start to throw darts at me, it might be interesting to know across the cohorts again why people stay.
That's a great suggestion, and we're actually doing a teacher satisfaction survey, as I mentioned in my note to y'all last Friday. And I'm gonna soapbox just for a second, so I apologize. Actually, there's a really good TED Talk that you all should watch about the teacher shortage in the country. Literally dozens of people have watched it, but it's very good. There are about 8 or 9 different factors that teachers who leave teaching point to and say, this is the reason why I left. Only one of them is salary. There's lots of others that that have very little to do with salary. Things like being asked to do things that don't have anything to do with teaching, too much assessment, not being appreciated for the work that I do, too many things I have to do after work, to keep up with what's going on in school. There are lots of factors that teachers point to. So that's what we're asking teachers in Accomack is, what are those things? Like, what are the things that we can do to make you more satisfied with our school divisions that perhaps don't have anything to do with money? Because as you probably know, most people don't get into teaching to get rich. They get it because they want to teach. So, good catch, and we are working on that survey. And I know that we do exit surveying, and I stepped on TJ's toes a little bit, but he was okay for the most part. In doing a survey in mid-year, we do exit surveying, and that data is important. Asking people, why are you leaving us? But it's also good to get them in the middle of the year before they leave us. Say, what can we do to make you feel more comfortable in our school division? And teachers appreciate being heard. They don't get that a lot. So that is going to be forthcoming. As far as the reserve fund, I did want to mention just briefly a little bit about the reserve fund. Again, I'll be talking more about it next week. Reserve fund stands at 24 million, it went up another 4 million, it's 20 million. The vast majority of that money is gonna go towards the 3 building projects that we're currently engaged with, as you all know. And I just wanna say what a blessing it is, to be able to pay for these projects with cash. We are in a very fortunate position, because most times you can have debt service programs like this, you're gonna have to go to the county, hat in hand, and ask for money. You don't have to do either, you can just pay cash for it. That's fantastic, and that's really unheard of. That just doesn't happen in most places. What I would recommend you do moving forward is after that's washed out, those programs are paid for, take the rest of the reserve, put it into 3 different funds: an emergency reserve fund, a building fund for future building projects, and a CIP fund for things like boilers. We lost a boiler here today. Things like that. Boilers, they get old, they have to be replaced, they're very expensive. Doesn't matter how much preventative maintenance you do, they have a shelf life and they're gonna go bad. Just like roofs, same kind of thing. So I strongly recommend that the board does that. Divide that up so you're saving for things, for unexpected things like bad boilers. And again, I've talked about this quite a bit. I'm recommending also, will be forthcoming in my budget, paying for as much one-time expenditures as we can out of carryover rather than baking it into the budget. As I said at the last meeting, you could literally pay for every single thing on the approved CIP list out of your reserve if you wanted to. I don't necessarily recommend that, but all those things on the CIP, which are mostly things like HVAC, roofs, boilers, whatever, they could be paid for out of your reserve right now if you chose to do that. I don't necessarily recommend that, but you could. And I mentioned a piece about positions that year to year, if you just don't have them, at some point, you punt on those, and you say, we're not gonna be able to fill them. Like PTOTs are a good example. They're just hard to find. They're like hen's teeth. Guidance counselors are getting there because of the state requirements relative to the requirements for becoming a guidance counselor are so insane. And then on top of that, the decision of the General Assembly is to require more guidance counselors for school divisions. And the 80-20 rule, that's a good rule. I like it. But finding the guidance counselors, that's a whole different subject. To find those qualified applicants, because they're very, very difficult to find. This is no surprise, I'm recommending that we add an assistant superintendent for instruction. One individual is directly manages, guides all facets of the ACCPS instructor programming, reporting, goal setting, and data disaggregation. I think it's critically important, it's just my opinion, but I would let the permanent superintendent choose that perfect person for that position because it's an extremely important position. And also the job description can be fine-tuned, ought to be fine-tuned by the next superintendent. And last but not least, on recommendations, and again, this is something I've touched on before. I think when you hire the new superintendent, I think there is opportunity there to reorganize at central office, provide more efficiency and equity among staff, and provide better service for stakeholders. There's a lot of staff who are doing a lot of different things, and there's opportunity there to look at job descriptions and duties and responsibilities and create more of an equitable design. And I can tell you that hiring a PIO and assistant superintendent for instruction is going to take a ton of pressure off people. There's no less than half a dozen people who are involved in things like web page, robocalling, newsletter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of people involved with that. It'd be fantastic if you've got one person to do that work and take it off other people's plates. Same with the assistant superintendent for instruction. But more importantly for the assistant superintendent piece, it's the accountability piece. Having one person who's doing the reporting, who's digging in, presenting data to the school board, and the whole accountability piece within the organizational structure. Having that person that's responsible, I think it's very important. Again, it's ultimately a short decision, but that is definitely a recommendation I have. And I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions on that? I know I said a lot there, I apologize. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I know the semester's coming to an end, and next week or so the children have SOL tests, and I wish them well on their tests.
I was unable to attend the last school board meeting. I paused to say thank you to everyone connected to ACPS who acknowledged that a family member of mine was shot and killed. I also want to thank those who were able to attend the funeral. The young man is not only my blood family, he's connected to my church family. He was a product of Accomack County Public Schools. Similarly, Ms. Handy, class of 1985 at Arcadia High School, I want to say that it's not lost on people that that particular class, as an example, continues to have former classmates who leave the earth. And even for current students, what that does for me is just to acknowledge how the bonds that you form, right, it's important, you know, to try to maintain them because they last way past graduation. And I'd even go so far as to say for that class and for others that you're in people's thoughts and prayers. Beyond those things, a number of topics briefly. I want to thank Kickotank Elementary for your sharing and for your hospitality. Next topic, I'd like to encourage the students that need community service hours to be sure to check across the shore, across the county for upcoming events, especially this first quarter of 2025. The one example, Martin Luther King Day is January 20th, and there are various activities where students can volunteer. I took the liberty to look up Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and human rights advocacy. And so if anybody would like, you got a few minutes, want to know a little bit more about MLK, go to humanrights.com, humanrights.com, and check out their piece on him. Next, I'm almost done. I want to extend thanks to all the leaders, all the central office staff, administrators, everybody who's particularly navigating new waters with our interim superintendent. I want to thank you, Dr. Jett, for your leadership. I'm particularly impressed, Dr. Jett, with the suggestions that you made in your first report to the board for January. In particular, it is my hope that we get norms and protocols for this board in place so that we can continue to govern. Speaking of things that didn't get accomplished during 2024, I've lost count, but I think this is probably my third or fourth or fifth plea that the committee that we approved to look at student conduct, that we get that going. My particular concern, it's not mine alone, I've heard others express it, is around the youngest, the elementary students who come before the board for discipline, realizing that when they come before us that first time under current policy, it's really difficult to consider that they don't get a second chance to come before the board for discipline before being expelled. And then finally, with regard to comments being moved back up on the agenda, I want to be on public record to say that I joined in with my colleague, Mr. White. He asked last meeting, I put my request in writing with regard to moving teacher/student comments and public comments back up on the agenda. And in asking the first time, I specifically mentioned, want to go on record by saying that Robert's Rules of Order clearly indicates that you put comments at the beginning of an agenda. It's not a mandate, but the suggestion is there that comments come before the information and the actions so that they can inform that. Having comments at the end is very self-defeating. I also want to publicly acknowledge that when I asked the question about why comments were moved, I got two very different answers. I think that the professional thing to do is to move comments back up. That's it for me for tonight.
Just two or three things, briefly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank, Dr. Jake and everyone who presented tonight. I just wanted to comment briefly on the public information officer. I think it's a great idea. And I think it is important that we have someone who can step in and, accentuate the positives that are going on, in our division, and to minimize the negatives and mitigate situations as they arise. But for me, it was not the right timing, to add a new position that would most likely be permanent. But I do agree that it's a great idea. And our committee, will be meeting before the month's end for the first time, so just to put you at ease on that, and, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Handy. I just wanted to thank, everyone here at Key Tank for the presentations tonight. As we all know, that engaged students are actually retained students, and maybe not at the elementary level, but if we start them now and get them involved in a lot of different activities and things that they normally would not have access to, that goes a long way. I also wanted to speak to the young man's request to have the school board assist the Beta Club members in going on these trips. Things cost money, and we cannot think, maybe that's the right word, think or hope that because activities and events are offered, that parents can always afford to have their children participate. If we as a county and as a school system want our children to grow, want them to flourish, want them to become empowered, we have to assist them in becoming more social, becoming more aware of what's going on around them. So with that said, I only have one child going to Beta, and I know how much it's gonna cost us to send that one child. But for parents who have more than one child, it's gonna be difficult. We paid, I think it was last week, for the middle school to go to Hampton. It was $150. Imagine, and I know Dan doing middle school, they have a huge Beta Club, junior Beta Club. So just imagine. So I'm just asking us as a board. I hear a lot of money, a lot of dollars being discussed tonight. If Miss Taylor, I guess she's in charge, or Miss, is it Farrell, to let us know how much it's gonna cost. He said if you just give us transportation, it would help a lot. So we can find out how much it costs to take them to Hampton. If we can find out, because are they going to Orlando as well? Mm-hmm. Elementary going to Orlando as well?
Yes.
If our children are going anywhere and a child says that they cannot afford to go, or a parent implies or indicates that they cannot afford to have their child participate, I think that we as a board need to find some money somewhere so that those children can go. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. We have not been together in almost a month, so I just wanted to say I hope everyone had a restful holiday as we delve into budget season. There's gonna be a lot of worthy requests, and just please ask questions of all the people there. Some came tonight, there'll be probably more at the next meeting. And it won't just be principals, it'll be other like department chair people too. And then just a couple reminders, for anybody maybe who's new or didn't know this, if anybody has an item they would like on the agenda, just let me know. And also, for anybody that maybe didn't know this or forgot, if you all want to claim mileage to come to the meetings, we're entitled to claim our mileage to and from meetings, any official school board activity.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry. I just need to know if anybody knows, or if you can shoot me an email, how the trip to Hawaii went.
we're gonna hear about that, they're gonna come and present at our next meeting.
Oh, great, okay.
Mr. Taylor.
I'll keep mine brief. I just want to say thank you to Calender for the presentation and housing this meeting this evening. And as Ms. Turner said, the junior ROTC will be here next week to give a presentation on their trip. So look forward to that.
I'd like to also thank Calender for the presentation of all the people. Also, I'd like to recognize a board member, Mr. Calvin Washington, in the audience. Also, I'd like to thank you all for showing up and staying for this meeting. See, it went a little long, but thank you all for staying. And like I said, hopefully this year we will get things done for the children. And that's gonna be my plea all year, to get things done for the children here in Accomack County Public Schools. Thank you.
Mr. Weber.
Start off saying thanks for everybody coming tonight. Thank Dr. Jack for his leadership. Reminder, this month is SEAC committee meeting. Anybody who has any kids with special needs, it'd be awesome if you guys could come out. And hopefully by next meeting we'll have something together for the compensation for the $15 minimum, so we can get these people the money they deserve.
Thank you. Mr. Neal?
It's like going last because everything's already been said. Mr. Green, thank you and your staff. Thank you guys for staying so late. Thank you, parents and students did a fantastic job. And Ms. Handy, thank you for saying what you said. I wouldn't have been able to say it like that, but that thought's been on my mind since that young man spoke. Thank you very much.
We have student staff comments. Does anyone sign up for student staff comments?
I didn't sign up.
Just, I'm gonna give you any signals.
Dr. Fetterman didn't sign up, but he's asking, requesting to.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
3 minutes.
Yes,
3
thank you.
minutes. Thank you.
It'll be less than that. I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for being here, but first of all, I want us to really take into consideration about our delays. There is a major differentiation when there is a delay, and we hear that our 12-month employees should report on time. If the conditions are unsafe, they're unsafe. And it should not matter whether you're a 12-month employee or a 10-month employee. If the conditions are not safe, then no one should be on the road, period. The other point is, if there is a delay or school is closed, many of our employees are in buildings without heat. That is just unacceptable. So if we're expecting them to do the work, they should be afforded the amenities of heat and good working conditions. The last thing that I want to mention is that when we're talking about all of these compensation studies, we need to get in a mindset of getting rid of bonuses. Bonuses sound good, but bonuses do not do anything to add to credible compensation. Any funds that our employees get should be monies that will go towards their retirement. So these little extra dollars that you're giving people to make it feel good, it really doesn't do much to help their retirement. So as you're considering bonuses, everything should be given in a manner that adds to credible compensation. Compensation that will be afforded to them in their retirement. Anything other than that is unacceptable. And I believe that all of our cafeteria workers, all of our bus drivers, they need to get the money they deserve. Hearing this it's horrible. That you can go to Dunkin' Donuts and make $17 an hour, but can't work in Accomack County for $15 an hour. So I just think that we need to find a way to really make this right, and this ripple effect that we keep talking about, we've got to find a way to just stop it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Turner. Can I say something? Sorry, I wasn't planning on speaking, but my name is Cole Burford. I am a kindergarten teacher at Shankatig Elementary School. And all I wanted to say, because I wasn't going to speak, is I wanted to give Ms. Farrell a thank you for speaking about the instructional assistants for kindergarten. I know I've been really blessed with Ms. Meckley being our full-time assistant in my classroom, and it has been phenomenal. I have seen so much growth in my students that I've never seen before, and I know I'm only a 6-year teacher, but all of my students, according to recent testing, are either in the transitional reading period or the late emergent, which is pretty awesome for January. I don't have any students that are in the early emergent anymore, which means they're still working on letters and sounds. The amount of things we're able to do already in January, from reading texts that have CBC words by themselves, spelling by themselves, being able to identify the middle sound in a word, and I have some kids ready to start on long vowels, I have some kids ready to start on R-controlled vowels, so I've just seen a lot of growth, and I really think it's because of having an extra person in the room. So it's just been a really beneficial thing. The other thing I wanted to say was I wanted to give a shout out to our school security officers. I know me personally, we have one that's even in the cafeteria helping with kindergarten lunch duty. And it is so amazing to see the kids interacting with someone in that position. And I know they already like the school resource officer, Mr. Gino. We all love him, he's great. But these additional people have been a nice friendly face to see in the morning. And I do like how they do take the time to check every student. And I like how they're always in the classroom. Sometimes they'll drop off notes, they'll talk to my kids, they'll sit down with them, have a conversation. And so it's just been a nice positive experience, and I'm really grateful for the two that we have at our school. They have been a really, really great asset, so I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Next up, the school board will adjourn to closed meeting.
Board should convene in a closed session pursuant to the following section of the Code of Virginia,